Yeah, okay.
That's.
Good evening. Let's call to order this public meeting for the Planning and Zoning Committee involving two amendments. Let me start off with just a moment of silence. Okay. Now, if we can have a motion to adopt the agenda. That's unanimous.
State who, just repeat for, so she can get it on the minute, so. We can say who first said it.
Okay.
You know.
First and second. And who we approve?
I'm gonna take that and give it to Barbara.
Okay.
Okay, and our minutes, approval of the minutes, for tonight,
I'll make a motion.
or second, and, a motion to approve. That's unanimous. Now, a public hearing, committee. In this regard, the purpose of this hearing is to, deal with two amendments, one involving text, the other one involving mapping. We'll begin with a description of the application and Linda's report and recommendation.
Okay, so the first public hearing is on the zoning text amendment. This is for the transfer of development rights pursuant to OCGA 3666A1 et sec. So, Commission has my administrative report. The first one, it's entitled petition for text amendment. Okay. So in summary, the mayor and town council desire to amend the zoning code of the town of Tallulah Falls to establish procedures, methods, and standards for the transfer of development rights within its jurisdiction pursuant to OCGA 3633A1. It is the purpose and intent of the zoning text amendment to provide for the transfer of development rights, the maximum development that would be allowed on a parcel under its current zoning from one property to another to promote the conservation of natural, agricultural, environmental, historical, and cultural resources and encourage the smart growth and appropriate acreage. As far as current language in our zoning ordinance, it's not addressed. We don't talk about transfer development rights in our existing ordinance. So the proposed language would be the proposed transferable rights ordinance that is attached to my report there and was available online as well. You've got some red lines in that one from what I originally sent you guys. Those were some changes that I talked to the attorney's office about. So I just want to make you aware of the few red line changes that are in that, which are mostly just had to do with the department, which is not a department, it's me. so instead of defining department, we, put in zoning administrator, processing fees, that kind of thing should be done by the town council. So we can go through the transfer of development rights ordinance. Quickly, the purpose I've already stated. The next section is definitions. So there's a receiving area, a receiving property, ascending area, ascending property. So you're basically sending your development rights from one parcel of land to a receiving parcel. Receiving property. So you're taking one development right from one property and you're transferring that somewhere else for the same owner. So those Sending areas are those properties from which development rights may be transferred to a receiving area. Sending areas may be any properties in Tallulah Falls, except those areas that are ineligible under section 2305 or otherwise prohibited by the code. Additional sending areas may be designated through the amendment process as set forth in Appendix A, which is our zoning ordinance, and the procedures and requirements set forth in OCGA 3666A2. For your receiving area, those are properties which may receive development rights from a sending area. Those are also any property in Tallulah Falls, except those areas that are ineligible. And there's a process for amending those receiving areas as set forth in OCGA 3666A2. So for eligibility, landowners or representatives with the authority to transfer the simple ownership of any parcel in Tallulah Falls, except as noted below, may apply for transfer of development rights certificate. Parcels that are not eligible include any parcel from which all the development rights have previously been sold or transferred. Any parcel in which a conservation easement legally binding agreement between the property owner and a governmental body or charitable or organization that restricts the type and amount of development and use that may take place on the property, or other permanent deed restriction that's previously been granted. So if it's in a conservation easement or restricted previously in some sort of way, then that is ineligible. Any parcel fully developed based on its existing zoning, so if it's already maxed out on its density, and then there's nothing to be able to transfer. So you could not use that kind of piece of property. Any parcel or portion of a parcel that has been designated and zoned as sensitive land district or flood hazard area district shall not be eligible as a receiving area. So you could protect those areas and have them as a sending area, so you could send the development rights away from those, but those could not receive development rights. And then any publicly owned parcel are ineligible in any land with riparian buffers mandated by state or local law. Those are ineligible. So then it goes through the application requirements for transfer of development rights for certificate for the sending property. Which is basically just your name, address, phone number, proof of ownership, meets and bounds, written legal description and plat prepared within 90 days of the application by a licensed surveyor. The written description of the physical characteristics of the property, site plan, which illustrates the existing or proposed dwellings, historical structures, easements, or other encumbrances, and the processing fee as established by the town council. Calculation of development rights. Within 95 days of the receipt of the completed application for transfer of development rights certificate, the zoning administrator shall certify the number of transferable development rights, assign serial numbers accordingly, and issue a transfer of development rights certificate. Development rights shall be calculated in accordance with the following: sending parcels. TDRs that are available to be created and transferred from the sending parcels are calculated on the basis of baseline density of the sending parcel. That's pursuant to our existing zoning ordinance, less any existing dwelling units. And once the number of TDRs has been calculated, it should be rounded up to the nearest whole number. So as the zoning administrator, I would look at what is currently already on the piece of on the property. What is it zoned for? What is the density allowed on it? And the TDRs available to send would be the difference between those two numbers. The use of TDRs is the next section. Qualified receiving parcels may use TDRs to develop additional density allowed through the program over and beyond the parcel's baseline density, which is what they would normally be able to do on that piece of property based on the zoning. Beyond baseline density, development should not exceed a maximum density of an average of 12 units per acre within a receiving parcel. So no matter how many you could transfer, it would not exceed that maximum density of 12 units per acre, even if there were available TDRs to send. So there's a maximum there, regardless of what's available. And then it goes through the application, which is the same, proof of ownership, boundary survey, plat, proof of ownership, processing fee. And then it requires a review by the mayor and council. So the mayor and council would consider the application at a public meeting. Shall be guided by ordinances, guidelines, criteria, policy statements herein as further adopted by the mayor and council regarding TDRs. They'll evaluate the application for any potential substantial adverse effect on the surrounding neighborhood and or the city at large. Mayor and council may approve the application as proposed if it meets all requirements, or approve it with modification as it deems necessary to ensure the application meets all requirements. It can table it until a date certain to give the applicant time to revise the application to ensure that it does meet all requirements, or they can reject it if the applicant is not willing to accept the changes necessary to ensure the application meets the requirements. And then it goes through, once it's been approved, it has to be recorded on the deed. It does follow, the property. The certificates are, the original TDR certificates are submitted to the zoning administrator for extinguishment. And then approval of the development rights that goes into the recording of the transfer of the TDR. It follows, like I said, it follows the deed, becomes a restrictive covenant. And then there's an appeal process following all that, if it's denied. So my recommendation is approval based on the desires of the mayor and council, and I find that the proposed language should be consistent with the state law that allows the transfer of development rights.
Thank you, Ms. Bobby. Okay, at this time, we'll go ahead and, the one advocating for, do we have anyone advocating for this?
No one on behalf of the town is here, but if anybody else wants to speak. I said no one is here as a petitioner on behalf of the town, so,
Petition.
but there may be other people in support. You can
Anybody in support who'd like to bring it up at this time, we have a 10-minute limit. For the proposal in 10 minutes, those in opposition.
Anybody on Zoom that wishes to speak in favor of the zoning text amendment? Shucks. Marcia, are you able to hear now? No one on Zoom.
Okay. Anyone to speak in opposition? Zoom.
Anyone on Zoom that wishes to speak in opposition to the zoning text amendment for transfer of development rights? No one on Zoom.
Okay, so at this time, we'll go ahead and close that.
No, okay,
Oh,
the
I'm
people
sorry.
here,
Oh, I'm sorry.
the audience.
Yes.
Anybody else? Want to say?
I just got a couple of questions if I could. I see there's two people ahead of me. I don't know, Mary Beth. or- I'm not sure.
That's just a sign sheet.
My name's Kirk Warren. I'm at 909 Hickory Down. Right. Thank you for having us here. And, I just have a couple of questions. First of all, what is the 2305? Except for what is ineligible, you mentioned 2305, is that part of the state statute or code?
That's further down in the ordinance for eligibility.
The section number.
Okay, what does the section say then? When you have that?
That's what she read that earlier, that you're not eligible if you've already sold all your previous eligibility, or if it's in a conservation easement, fully developed. If it's been designated as zoned as sensitive, publicly owned parcel, or land with riparian buffers mandated by state or local law.
I'm just interested in knowing more about this. I just don't quite understand why we have a town of 200 people and we need TV on. I mean, what could be, for instance, is there any type of receiving sites in the mountain?
Yes.
I mean, the receiving could be any parcels, in the town that are not in a sensitive or flood district.
Yeah.
So you could do it for a variety of reasons. You could do to protect one area and for smart growth in another area. So there's,
Yeah, my familiarity with TDRs, particularly in more areas that are populated and, profited. It's vastly throughout certain areas, what happened, cities and counties, what happened, but I've just never seen anything like that in a town. 150 people, what I'm afraid is gonna happen, it could happen, and it's just open us up to more influx on the mountain, such as for, I guess what I should ask, first of all, is does this apply to both commercial and residential, or just commercial or residential?
is any property,
It's what now?
any properties in Tallulah that are not in flood or sensitive.
So do we have any sites right now that are considered or would be considered TDRs that are in the corporate limits of the town?
Someone would need to make application for that. It's not an automatic. I mean, everybody has development rights on their own property.
Right.
So in essence, everybody has TDRs potential. Right.
What about
So
agriculture though? I mean, maybe that's what he's talking about.
even agriculture, I mean, everything except for sensitive land and flood district is included. So in a sensitive land and flood district, you could send there's still development rights on those parcels, right? So, but you could send those development rights away from those sensitive areas into another property that you own, if that made development sense. So you may want to protect one area and move your density to another area.
So an R1 could only be transferred to an R1.
No. I mean, you're still, what you're sending, so if it's 2.9, that in an R1 district, I think it's 2.9 units per acre. So if you have nothing on that piece of property but you can only send as much as you have available in your sending parcel. if that makes sense. So you couldn't, I mean, if you weren't gonna develop anything on that property, then you would have 2.93 development rights to send somewhere else. 3 units.
2.9 per acre.
Mhm.
So theoretically, then, if you had, an acre of land, let's say over towards, school, in the undeveloped. And you could go ahead and if you wanted to buy a parcel, if you wanted to put a parcel on the town, it's 5 acres. Then you could have multiple housing, you could have more than 2.9 homes on the mountain on that particular lot.
Samantha, are you available?
Yeah, so, this time is only for public comment, so
Hang on 1 second, let me see if I can turn up your volume.
you guys don't need to answer any questions right now. This is just for public comment, so sir, please continue to feel free to share your concerns. But to the extent you're asking them to, imagine what's gonna be in an application, there's not gonna be any solid answer. Can you guys hear me at all?
Now I can,
Okay, so you couldn't hear me at all earlier?
not very well then.
Okay, so what I was saying is right now is the time for public comment, so to that end, we don't need to answer any questions, and to the extent that you're also asking, us to kind of do the imaginary application and math on the fly, I mean, you really can't do that. You'd have to see what's in the application, what they're asking for, what they're trying to send, what the receiving parcel is. There's a lot of factors that go into this.
Here's one to explain.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear
I
you.
said it would be great if someone could explain that. My question is, it's just a member of the public. I'm just asking questions. And that's how we receive the knowledge and wish to participate.
Well, and like I said, feel free to continue sharing your concerns if you'd like to.
Is she talking to me or?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my concerns. I'm just trying to figure out why we need TDR rights in the town is small. I mean, I can see it in suburbs of Atlanta and everything like that. There's TDRs all over the place, but as far as the town of Tula Falls, I can't see how it ever be welcome to it.
Who initiated it?
I think.
Anyone else?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment.
Not yet. Ours was, we can have it in.
Oh,
It's a public hearing.
We'll have that. Jen.
oh,
Okay, let's go on to the zoning map amendment at this time. One moves.
Okay. All right, this public hearing is. That closes the public hearing on the zoning text amendment, and we're opening the public hearing on the zoning map amendment. This is to rezone tax parcel 101B064 from R1 to R2. You've got my report on that one. So in any rezoning, the first page is basically what parcel we're talking about. It's kind of just the summary of the whole thing, with what it's proposed use for, which is the townhome units. The request from council is to rezone to R2 multiple family residential. The current use is undeveloped. Current zoning is R1 single family. We're talking 1.12 acres. The newspaper advertisements have been out. The sign is posted. Tonight is the public hearing for the P and Z, and the council will have their public hearing on December the 14th. The mayor and council desire to rezone tax parcel 101B064 in Raven County, town of Toledo Falls from R1 single family to R2 multiple family. So as a part of that, the analysis for rezoning, there's criteria, there's 9 different criterias to consider for a map amendment. Those are listed there. I'll kind of go through each of those briefly. The first is the existing use and zoning of nearby property and whether the proposed zoning will adversely affect the existing use or usability of nearby property. All the property surrounding the subject property is zoned R1 single family residential. Stated purpose of R1 single family residential is to establish and preserve quiet single family home neighborhoods as desired by large numbers of people, free from other uses except those which are both compatible and convenient to the residences of such district. The stated purpose of R2 multiple family residential is to establish and preserve quiet residential districts offering a wide choice of housing types within the town of Toledo Falls, which are suitable for both single and multiple family dwellings, free from other uses except those which are both compatible with and convenient to the residents of such district. The permitted uses in an R2 district include any permitted use in R1, any conditional use permitted in R1, accessory buildings or uses customarily incidental to and to any of the above uses, room and boarding houses, 2 family and multiple family dwellings, including apartments and condominiums, not hotels and motels, and townhomes. As to parcel 101B064, there is a single family residence generally to the east. That's Ms. Hughes. Tallulah Lake to the north. The land generally to the south and west is undeveloped. The rezoning to R2 multiple family residential would not significantly affect the usability of nearby property. The second criteria is the physical suitability of the subject property for development as presently zoned and under the proposed zoning. So the subject properties are suitable for development as single family residential, provided that dedicated access can be established. And they are all also suitable for development as multiple family residential, provided that that dedicated access can be established. If rezoned to the R2 multiple family residential, parcel 101B064 is suitable for maximum density of 5.8 units per acre. Greater density would require a transfer of development rights if approved by the mayor and council. Number 3, the length of time the subject properties have been vacant considered in the context of land development in the area of the vicinity of the property, and whether they are existing or changed conditions affecting the use and development of property, which gives supporting grounds for either approval or disapproval of the rezoning request. The subject property is undeveloped and has been for some time, and with regard to parcel 101B064, access remains questionable, but proof will be required prior to permitting. The zoning history of the subject property is currently zoned R1 single family residential. No other zoning has been noted. Number 5, the extent to which the proposed zoning will result in a use which will or could cause excessive or burdensome use of existing streets, transportation facilities, utilities, schools, parks, or other facilities. The proposed townhomes would likely cause some increased traffic on Main Street and River Street. Utilities, according to the town's engineer, the proposed development would be served by the town's low system that is supplied pressure from the old concrete reservoir. Water is available to be provided by the town through a bulk water agreement with the city of Demorest. 6-inch water lines may be necessary for fire suppression. Sewer is not available. Permitting would be contingent on subject approval by the Raven County Health Department. And public services, fire buildings would need to meet requirements of the state minimum building codes. No anticipated negative impacts are expected relative to the schools, parks, or other public facilities. Number 6, whether the zoning proposal is in conformity with the policy and intent of the comprehensive plan, land use plan, or other adopted plans. 2019 Raven County Joint Comprehensive Plan identifies the area as village residential, which is by definition almost exclusively single-family residential in nature. The proposed zoning is more consistent with waterfront development character area, and if approved, should be amended in the comprehensive plan update. No other relevant factors. Conclusion. I recommend approval of the town's request to rezone the subject from R1 single family residential to R2 multiple family residential based on stated desires of the mayor council. Proposed rezoning district continues to establish and preserve quiet residential districts, offering a wide choice of housing types which are suitable for single and multi-family dwellings. Character map included in the joint comprehensive plan should be updated to water development. To be consistent with the zoning amendment, water and road infrastructure should be reviewed now and periodically as development progresses to see what, if any, improvements are necessary. And then there's some addendums listed which are in your original packet, which have the comprehensive plan, parts of comprehensive plan are in there, the character map that I spoke about, and all of this zoning map is in there. Thank you.
Does the petitioner have anything to add to this, to elaborate on this?
There's no one here on behalf of the city.
Okay, the attorney wouldn't do that. Do we have anyone in opposition to this?
In favor,
In
in favor first, in support.
in support of the vote.
Anybody on Zoom that wants to speak in support of the rezoning?
And anyone in opposition to speak on this?
Going to the city first. And before the last public hearing, we had, it's in the Senate first, opposition. And
Anybody that raises their hand?
I'm opposed.
Not you, not you, not you.
Glad I got it.
well,
The public, sorry.
We speak on that, right? This is for us. I'm doing.
All right, anyone on Zoom that wanted to speak in opposition?
Kurt would like to say something.
well, it's just. Kirk Warren, 909 Hickory Mountain Road. I wasn't here about a year and a half ago, but we had this whole place filled up. We dealt with basically opposition things happening. And there wasn't one councilman that voted in favor. I can't understand what has happened since then, but it's the same properties over there. We all have lived here for eons of years, 20 years, 15 years, 30 years, 10 years. We came here because of R2, not commercial. We came here just strictly for single family residential dwellings where we wanted to office, wanted to spend the rest of our life. We've been on the roadways and on the water. That's been a disappointment as well. And now we're trying to have an influx of so many other residents, or at least part-time residents, in a quote-unquote resort. I'm obviously not in favor of that. I think it's just asinine that this is happening. First of all, unless I got my information wrong, the owners that purchased this property, they purchased it knowing it was in the money. And for them to come back now and rezone it, basically the whole capacity of the whole living structure is not good. We don't have the roadways that are sufficient for this. And of course, feeling compounding that short-term means we don't have the fire capacity to fight fires. We know that there's only one way up the mountain, there's only one way down. There's a fire on this mountain. There's a lot of deaths. We got people incapacitated there. People that are old, elderly, can't get around. There's nobody to understand. I can't imagine anybody voting for this person. But it's happening. And I'm just deeply concerned about it. Because I've got property up there and that's where I want to spend the rest of my life. But what is this gonna be in 5 or 10 years? There's no prohibition or inhibition, restriction of any expansion of the nine basketball we're already getting into now. So if units want to be expanded, what's gonna stop that? Where are we gonna get our water from? And how are we going to drive up and down Main Street? How are we gonna have bluegrass inside the influx traffic? I don't think anybody's thought about it. The main thing is public health, safety, and welfare, and that's what we're gonna do. This is something that should be built maybe on the highway, what have you, but not within this 5 or 6 residential homes. When we pass that, being on the lakeside. In the middle of the residential. No, and that's what we want. So, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons, but those are the main 3 that I can think of. Plus, the lack of impact fees or anything that the petitioner is basically giving to us to help develop. It's very, it's nil, it's not. So the town's gonna have to take up a lot of different increased payments, or taxes, whatever, just to basically get into line with what's gonna happen. We're talking about 4-inch water pipes to 6-inch water pipes. Who's gonna be paying for all of this? And this is just not the type of development that we have. I can speak for a number of, I guess, citizens, you know, that basically that I talk with, nobody's in favor. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? In opposition? Any form of rebuttal from the town, I guess, not, but.
We can close that. You can close that.
Okay, our public hearing is closed at this time, and we'll open it up for other discussion, yes. Where shall we begin?
It's for development rights.
Okay, the first,
New business.
okay, it's deliberation and recommendation to council for zoning text amendment regarding the transfer of developmental rights pursuant to OCGA 36-66A-1. Okay,
I had a lot of issues with this.
So do I.
I think we're doing good. My issues, you don't want me to start. I don't feel like this was very thorough. It opened it up and made it a wide open space. I feel like we need to narrow it down a lot. Not that every single property should be available. I don't believe that. And I also talk about that, but. As far as like the sending area, I had come up with, this one just says that it means an area identified by an ordinance as an area from which rights are authorized to be transferred, and then further, everybody's eligible, except for only these few. I think that if our purpose is to provide transfer to allow, promote conservation of natural, agriculture, environmental, historical, and cultural resources, encourage smart growth in appropriate areas, then we can't have it open to everything. If our purpose is for those, then we need to make sure that only the things that are gonna promote those are eligible. So I shouldn't be eligible when I have over an acre and I can give away or sell 1.9 more of mine to Harry, and let's say Harry has an acre, and now Harry can put 4 more units on the back side of his property. That's silly. I don't think I think we need to be smarter and we need to tighten it down. I don't think it needs to be wide open. It also doesn't state if you're gonna transfer those from a commercial property that we own down to a residential property. The density for that is way different than a residential. So are we allowing commercial to residential? Or residential to residential only? R1 to R1? R1 to R2, but not R2 down to R1?
Samantha, can you help the commission out on that?
So the way it's written right now, yes, I mean, obviously, you guys get to recommend whatever changes you feel like are needed. I would put the caveat on, it has to be reasonable, right? If we have 1 acre and somebody has commercial property somewhere else and wants to transfer that development right to the 1 acre and they want to build, a massive mall, I don't know that would ever get approved. I mean, I can't say, obviously there's an application process and the town has to consider it, and there's lots of things you're considering. So I would just say it's not guaranteed that this person's going to get, what they're asking for with the TDRs. But to the extent you guys want to, make a recommendation to make those specific changes, obviously, please, write those down so that that's in your recommendation.
So there's still an application process that has to be done, so it's not automatic.
Like, I think we need to straight up say no commercial. We're not doing any, you're not gonna be able to give away rights on any commercial property to any other property.
So any other commercial property or
No.
any.
No, they don't get rights. They have rights for what they have. I mean, why would we wanna give away rights when our comprehensive plan says we wanna build up commercial in the commercial areas? We don't wanna transfer those rights away. Because we can.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think this is, far too open for a small town like this. I think if we want to do something like this, and I can't honestly see a reason for it, but if we were wanting to do something like this, it would have to be very restricted at first. Because I don't think it's gonna be accepted. I mean, I in all good consciousness, I wouldn't, recommend this right now, knowing what I know. I think I would have to spend more time studying what we're looking at. It's a lot of information. And we would have to look at what those impacts have meant to other places, even larger than ours. To see how did that affect? I mean, that's the advantage that we have, is to see how these things affected someone else first. And then, oh, okay, well, this worked and that didn't work. But there's a lot of reservations about transferring rights. And normally that's done by someone that owns a lot of property and wants to, like it says, do something with one piece and something else with another. I think it's ongoing with the premise that people are going to be honest or forthright. And I don't think as a small town, we can go forward with our recommendations and rules and planning that everything is going to happen forthright. We need to protect our town and our citizens from exactly that. We don't want somebody that's been living here, raising their family their whole life to be affected by someone that just bought 100 acres across the road and then wanted to transfer rights to affect. And I understand that there's rules in there there is a process of what's accepted and what's not. I understand that. But that's why they have lawyers. lawyers affect things that you may not intend. So going forward, we need to be careful and protect ourselves against things like that. And why have them? Well, there's probably reasons for and reasons against. But I think at this time, we would really benefit from seeing how this negatively affected other people and how it may positively affect other towns. I say people, I mean towns and cities. And I'm sure we're gonna be looking at large populations, because you're not gonna find a lot of this affecting small populated areas, because you're not gonna find too much of this transference. Because it's dangerous, quite frankly. And I think that me as a council member here, I want to be more familiar with what exactly we're talking about before I can recommend something like this. I'm not saying good or bad. There's some bad, there's some good, I'm sure in there. I'm not gonna say I'm for or against, but I definitely want to be more familiarized with what I'm looking at going forward.
Linda, how did this come about well, I got a copy, which there was an edit, but I had never heard of GDR. So what brought this up and all that's been going on? Because when I read this, to me, it's not in favor of Tallulah Falls. It's in favor of the builders or the landowners.
Which is Tallulah Falls at the same time, but, so it came up as a part of with the proposed R2 rezoning in order to get a 12-unit density, it's gonna require the transfer of development rights from other property that they have.
Okay, so they wanted to get 12 units. And they couldn't get it on the property that they had, so they wanted to transfer from another property.
Right, based on the R2 rezoning, instead of business or anything else, to do R2, it would require, the density is still small enough in our zoning ordinance that it would require a transfer of development rights to be able to get to the 12. So they can decrease what they're gonna do on other properties in order to increase that if we approve a mechanism for that to happen.
How do we know that's gonna happen?
Well, that's why we're here.
I mean, they say they're gonna do it, so.
Well, like I said, I would recommend that we narrow that down a little bit. We start, I mean, we can make things happen without opening ourselves up to future problems. That's what I'm saying. Let's think about small steps. This is a huge jump. And I think we should back up a little bit. Not retard someone from trying to gain what they want or what they need. Work with that and try to make that happen without being a roadblock. But also keep in mind that we don't want to open ourselves up to a future major problem. And that's what mechanisms do. Obviously, instead of a bunch of gears turning, we need one small one right now. And we can always add to that. It's always easy to add things. It's a lot harder to take away. And I just see a lot of things in here that maybe could be toned down.
Yeah,
That
but
is
the
true.
potential is too great.
We don't want to stop people from getting what they need to get. That's not the intention here. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't do that on the curve. But there is something, let's not open ourselves up to catastrophe.
On this particular zoning change, request in change, the properties are all adjacent, aren't they, where the transference of density is from this section over here into this area, am I correct? All the properties are adjacent for the transfer?
Well,
No.
for the sender and the receiver.
No, they're not all adjacent, they're all below, they're all not part of Pickwick Nut, but they're not all adjacent. So the parcel that we're talking about rezoning to R2, those lots are all adjacent. But it's two different things, on the transfer of development rights, that would be from property.
The sending property is not adjacent, the receiving property is.
Yeah, the sending property is, and I think that we can probably, make that happen.
Could that be done?
We can make
Mr.
that
Allen's
happen
development?
without opening ourselves up to a future
Yeah,
problem. And we may want to elaborate on it. We may want to make it larger in a certain circumstances. But this particular circumstance, let's go at this with a scalpel rather than a chainsaw. That's all I'm saying. And I think to your point is correct. In that the problem right now is localized. So, and I understand that we might have to think outside the box to get that problem solved, but let's keep it localized.
exactly, like Village Commercial is across the way. On the others, but it's almost waterfront too, isn't it? Over here on like
Yeah.
on Shore Circle.
So that's not the zoning map, that's the
But we're,
future land.
right, what we want it to use.
Right.
So like you said, we may want to allow that section to have more to build up in that area, if that's where we want to see our growth to be, that it could be higher than what the density is. We could go the other way,
Exactly.
because we want to bring commercial up there too.
That's a good area to develop.
Yeah, you could
That's
have
a
like,
great area.
you could have, if we go to the Rails to Trails, you could have a bike shop that serves underneath with townhome open.
Or something similar. whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely our town needs to be open to grow in the right places and in the right areas. And I think we should be open-minded as far as some certain rezoning, some certain opening of development. I think we should be friendly towards that. Honestly, that's the.
and I think gives us a little more control as to where we want to see that. But we gotta make the rules fit our purpose and where we want to put the grade. It just doesn't need to be everywhere because it can be.
Agreed.
In the case, if the properties were adjacent and the transferring, you could in essence create like a park area and then have the commercial development. And that would open up that area.
Well, that was gonna be another suggestion I had too, was to say that not, that your residentials can go between each other to give away, but you also can give away green space where they could donate it to the county, to the city. It becomes city land and then they have the rights to put those wherever they want to later. If they gave us room for a park, that was in one of our comprehensive plans, was to have a park with possibly a playground. If somebody was to donate that land, donate some land for that, that we could put in something like that to have green space, and they could take those development rights and ones too. But it would have to be something the city wanted, not just because I'm gonna give you this.
And just a question off the cuff, how does this affect taxes, property taxes? In other words, if you have this piece of land, obviously the tax assessor takes that into consideration for his value. Now you're gonna take value away from that, you're gonna put it over here. So how do they keep up with it? They can hardly keep up with what's going on now.
I mean,
So we need to be careful about, as a town, as a city, about what we do to the county that we're in. You know what I mean? We're a city inside of a county. So we could make that tax assessor's job abundantly difficult, chasing around, trying to figure out what happened
If I
here.
sold you my
and over
1.9,
there.
my value should go down.
But, and I'm sure eventually it may, I don't know, I wouldn't want to get into that job, but it's just one more point. Saying that I think it should be considered a little bit as to what we do going forward as a town, as a small town. And I don't think, the huge steps need to be taken right now. I think as far as the city's concerned, obviously we want to encourage people to give to the city if that's, so be it, and they wanna do that. But I mean, we need to make that available and, you know, but not, you're gonna have people taking advantage of this, which I can see.
On the far side of the lake, it's very, very beautiful. Around the other side by the power company. But see, the power company is one building, but everything else is remarkable beautiful in that section. Be great for, for
To promote the growth over there.
the growth in that section.
Yeah, it does
But the
definitely
loop,
does.
the loop has so much potential too.
Yeah, it doesn't have to
And
be.
it's got
like
great-
that.
There's only two other rentals there.
It's got great
Short-term
views.
rentals. I've rented one time for 3 days.
Right.
I had more stuff too. Our calculations for what you're gonna send, or is it gonna be like, what is gonna be the ratio? Are you gonna go a 1-to-1 ratio? Or are you gonna go a half a ratio, or is it gonna depend on what you're sending it to, which district you're sending it to? If it's R1, is it 1-to-1, or but we go to R2, are we gonna give them more or less?
Right now, it's a 1-to-1 based on.
We don't say that. It just says you're gonna calculate it. It doesn't say, it doesn't say what it is.
Right now, the calculation is based on the minimum standards for lot width and area chart that's in section 1502 of Tallulah Falls zoning code. So if it was like R1 to R2, and let's say they're both 1 acre, and the R1 property doesn't have anything built on it, so they have, you know, the 2.9 maximum units per acre. Okay, so times 1 acre, that's 2.9, we're gonna round up to 3, so they have 3 rights to transfer, so then that's transferring to an R2 1 acre lot. Again, this is just the way it's written right now, you would multiply that 3, because it's just saying 3 rights. So the 3 rights times the maximum units per acre on R2, which is 5.8. Or you could do 1-to-1. I mean, realistically, the way it's written right now, it's supposed to be 1-to-1. So R1, you got 2.9. Let's round up to 3. R2, you have 5.8 in total. You can add 3 more units to that 5.8 max. So then it'd be, you know, 8.89 realistically. So it's written to be 1-to-1. It's not supposed to be multiplied, you know, especially with like, you guys, I think the business district allows for the most amount of development with 9.7 units.
Yeah,
per
so we would not want them to be able to transfer down.
One, I can certainly see why you would want it to be multiplied either, because then, you know, you're saying, okay, let's put like 30 units on an acre of land or something. So no, it's not supposed to be multiplied. It's just supposed to be the number of units added onto whatever the density is for that receiving parcel. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
It's
if
hard
it's
to
a
like
common,
explain without writing out math, honestly.
Right, but if you look at the situation that we're talking about. First you change the zoning. And then you up the capacity. That's the best of both worlds, isn't it? So yeah, okay, there's a limit to 1 acre. But now when you change it to R2. Then you can start putting more. And you see what I'm saying? You can't look at it as a strict mathematical problem. Because there's a lot of caveats. You can change this. There's a lot of people a lot smarter than I am out there that can figure out the way to win the lottery. And that's all I'm saying, that we should probably be a little bit careful. This may be one of those times that we need to allow that to happen. But I'm not sure I want it to happen again. That's all I'm saying.
And I think we need to include on the applications for both sides of it, like, they need to have an affidavit, a written statement of why, what they want to do, characteristics of their property, of what they want to do, meet the purpose of our statement, of the purpose of this ordinance. It needs to back it up, it needs to meet it, you need to explain why it needs it, if this is what we're gonna do. Because in my situation, me selling to Harry's wouldn't meet the purpose. If Harry wanted to increase the grade on his property, as he could, it wouldn't meet it. Meet the purpose.
I essentially have 2 acres, so I could.
But it wouldn't meet the purpose of what we want, the intent of this ordinance to be. Without, show us why, I need that. I think that should be on there.
As part of the application.
I think so, on both ends. One of the other things that I had too was before we decide to allow you to be a receiver and receive that, I think we need to require them to turn in all of the plans that they have. Everything that they intend to put on there.
There is a site plan illustrating existing or proposed dwelling.
I think we need to be a little tighter. And it needs to be done by somebody that's certified to do stuff like that, and I think it needs to be turned into the zoning administrator and sealed envelope signed by them. So it can't be changed from the original. And I think it needs to have an affidavit from them saying that they stated that they know our zoning laws. They're familiar with them, and that what they have proposed meets our zoning regulations. So a lot can change by the time you get it.
Well, it will. And then there has to be some kind of a reapplication or whatever, but everybody needs to be aware of what's being changed. Instead of, this is what you are allowed, and then this is what you're actually gonna do.
Right,
I agree.
I think so. And I think we need to have an expiration date on them. That you've got 12 months to start your construction, or you lose your permit or whatever we want to call it. You lose your certificate and you have to reapply for it. You got 24 months to get to occupancy.
No, I agree, because
And allow,
there's a lot of people that have
As
grand
things happen.
ideas and don't follow through.
right,
They don't wanna be stuck with a lot of undeveloped, half-developed properties.
and that messes up the person that sold it to you too, sold you their rights.
Mhm.
Because now they're stuck if they don't expire. And are we gonna, if they have a loan on the property, are we gonna require their lien holder to give approval for that? Cause that makes a big difference, is your value of your land for your potential.
Samantha, do you have any idea about that?
I don't, I mean, at least with the tax stuff, that's sort of the point of recording it as a restrictive covenant, so these covenants have to be recorded with the deed, so it's gonna go, you record it in the county superior court with the clerk, and it's part of the record, so that it's always there, so that, in the future, to the extent somebody else buys property from one of these people, they realize, oh, before I buy this property, I see that, they can't build anymore on this property, or they can build X, Y, and Z amount more.
But how does that affect the first deed for that property that's owned by the bank? The bank has the note for that. How does that affect the bank's position on that property if that property owner has signed away their potential to build?
In other words, you're saying that they will lend a certain amount of money for a certain property.
Because that
And
property had that
now,
value.
halfway through, you're changing that value.
Right, they've lost the potential value of that property.
So honestly, I
that
don't
legal
know the answer to that question. I would love to answer that for you guys. I can write a note and see if Warren knows. If you'd like me to do that, though, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, it really is. Cause that could cause some serious.
It Because if it has to go into foreclosure because it's lost all of its appeal, that messes up all of our property values.
Well, or a bank gets involved halfway through and says, oh, well, cuz. I'm not gonna allow that, cause technically they're the owners.
Yeah, I mean, I, like, if you read your deed, to secure debt on your house, it's got a lot of clauses in there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an attorney, but I would think you can't just change a deed that's secured by a lender.
And if you have that,
They would
the
have to
assignments
sign
of leases and rents, that's even, not even a lot more going on there.
So what are we supposed to be doing here?
Recommendation, we're talking about it to see if we're gonna accept, if we want to recommend the way it was written, if we want to recommend changes to it, or if we want to withhold our vote until we do a little more research.
I think you should chair it. I mean, that's just my suggestion as one council member. I would suggest that we chair it for
I agree.
at least 30 days. I mean,
You have 30 days to make a written recommendation.
well, We
So
need to
if
use
you
that
don't,
time.
if you don't make a recommendation, then it's
Then it goes.
automatically.
Correct. But at least that gives us 30 days to. You know, think about the changes. I know some changes have already been thought about. And there's some things that were thought about tonight while we're discussing this. And you might think of something in 2 days, so we can all jot it down. And we should probably come together on this again in a couple of weeks. So that we can iron out what we think and make a recommendation at that time, and maybe somebody can give somebody some time. Rather than waiting the full 30 days.
3 weeks would be the 29th. It's after Thanksgiving, Wednesday after Thanksgiving. Do y'all want to see about coming back after that? That gives us 3 weeks to think about it, to warrant, to answer some of these questions.
I'm for, I don't think I have a problem with
So you're a motion to.
Yes, I'm gonna make a motion. I
Right.
second.
Second.
To
And how do
table
you vote?
until
3 weeks
29,
from today, yes.
November 20th.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote on this.
are we gonna vote? Vote the motion to table, but, yeah.
Pictures.
Sorry, I'm not paying attention.
And that was on the text amendment.
Yeah.
Correct, we haven't even got on to
That was for
the
the,
rezoning, yeah.
that's for the text amendment, for the transfer development rights. So that will be postponed until November 29th at 6 o'clock. Okay. So
Okay.
then we got the news open.
Let's-
Deliberate.
Let's deliberate now on the public hearing regarding the rezone tax parcel 101 B064 from R1 to R2.
Right, so we tried the public hearing this time. This
Just open
is,
to our discussion.
I think personally, enough's been said about this. That you can write a novel, but I mean, that's just my personal opinion, I think. I'm done discussing this, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the only issues I have with this. If we make a motion to approve this tonight, as you have done it. And we haven't set forth what we want this to say. And this gets done first, then that opens this up for. Other stuff. Because we haven't set that yet.
well. Less stuff. I mean, the density would just be low until there's a ordinance to allow more.
And we don't know yet about the access.
We're not gonna know, that's not part of what we're doing. And that would be a permitting.
Yeah, I think it's a step, I think there's a step. There and keep them at the 12 or whatever, and then we can talk about how we're gonna. Allow that without opening this up to further future problems. Cause I think there's obviously a better plan, that's all I'm saying. I think there's a better plan, maybe less of, an encroachment on Tallulah Falls as a whole. And we can maybe just, compartmentalize that going forward. I don't know. What's best for the town of Tallulah Falls and for the people that live there. That's what we really need to be considering first and foremost. Is what's best for the town, not us as individuals or the people that live around us, but the whole place. And that, sitting here, looking at this, that's what comes to my mind, like you said with commercial. And so with the zoning, that particular request, honestly, I'm done with that. I just assume go forward with that. I don't see any reason to fight that, but that's just, personal opinion. I think we should allow one and reserve another. But, that's my opinion. Because we've already fought this out. We've already talked about the agreement that's been made. There's already an agreement that's been made between the town and this region. It's part of it.
We don't have to go along with it though.
No, you don't have to do anything,
Well, you know what I mean.
but personally, I'm a give and take kind of guy,
Okay.
you know what I mean? I'm the carrot and stick guy. But that's, everybody has their own ways of doing things.
I think we should just table it with the other one too,
Yes, that is it.
Yeah,
and do it all at one time together. Kind of get one.
this will go on this too.
How about we table it?
You're making the motion,
Yes, please.
And then,
I'll second.
unanimous. Oh, excuse me. I thought you winked at me. I counted that.
Yeah, I'll go with what our commission said, but under protest.
Well, you can vote no if you
No,
want.
no,
We're just tabling it, we're not
it's
saying
fine.
no, we're just tabling it all
That's
together.
fine. Yeah, I mean, I just think that we also need to think about maybe moving forward a little bit too, like,
I get you,
you know,
I get you, then
I mean, I feel like that thing's been beat for years, but whatever.
Okay, so we table
So
it.
really, the big concern is us opening a door and it's always open and it can always be pushed around accordingly.
we need,
It
if
can always
we,
be manipulated.
my big concern for all of it is just, if our purpose is going to be for this ordinance to promote the conservation of natural, agricultural, environmental, historical, and cultural resources, encourage smart growth in appropriate areas, then we need to designate what those are and what we're going to allow.
Yeah, no,
It
I'm
shouldn't
all
be-
for tabling
Yeah.
that, but the
I-
rezoning is something completely separate. This is a request for rezoning of a particular property. It's established on that particular property, am I wrong? I mean, this is a request of a landowner in Tallulah Falls that wants to rezone
City. The city initiated
this,
it.
that wants to rezone. And that rezoning of that particular property right now only allows a certain density, which creates another issue. And that's the one that I want to make sure going forward, that we don't create a problem.
But if we don't fix this first, and we just allow it to be rezoned, there's nothing there to stop what could be there potentially if it was already just rezoned, right?
We have.
It's a density problem. They can't,
Yeah,
You
the
can't get
density would
past-
be too low.
you can't
If
get
it-
past
if we-
the
if it
density
was-
problem
if we
until
just
we
said do it
fix
right
this.
now to zone two, what would the maximum density that you
Well,
have?
Units.
No.
No, it's not 12.
No, it's,
The maximum density for R2 is 5.8 units per acre.
yeah, so it's only 2 acres, so. Only like.
So essentially, the city's not gonna care if we put it off right now anyway, because it's not achieving the purpose that it's gonna get.
Okay.
I don't know, I just. They go hand in hand, I think we should just. Yeah. But we can all have open conversations.
Well, at the end of the day, it's just a recommendation. to you guys. So,
Yeah, nothing can happen real until.
You all will meet
Before.
before the council's public hearing anyway, so, you know, it's not delaying.
So they're not meeting tomorrow?
Yeah, we're meeting tomorrow, but this is not on our agenda.
Okay.
Will the the construction noise ordinance that we put out be on the agenda tomorrow?
No.
Can we get it on the agenda for?
There, we don't even have a proposed ordinance yet. Last I
I
thought
see it in
y'all were,
there. I see it in the, minutes. Written how we want it. Would you like me to get that to you? Written with the proposed ordinance? All right, I'll go back to these minutes. Oh my gosh, what is that? Oh, boy. So.
I
we
thought we
wrote-
were gonna get some drafts or proposals.
Yeah, we wrote- that noise referencing construction, remodeling, demolition activity in commercial vehicles excluding non-emergency and emergency utility vehicles in residential areas to be allowed from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, on Saturday. 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 Saturday, and no Sundays or holidays. So we would like to send that to city council to vote on. Or whatever, we have to go to the next process. Okay.
We'll have to get a draft ordinance.
What did the sign? What was that?
No, this is for construction,
The construction.
construction noise in residential areas. Draft ordinance from Warren. So we'll just get Warren to the draft and maybe it can be added in the December.
Or consider. Yeah, speak for.
I mean, is that the right way to do it there?
Yeah.
Okay. And then will we have to go for a public hearing for us first and then?
Don't think our nuisance ordinance, which would include noise, would be under the zoning. Samantha, I don't think it's under. If they propose something on the noise.
Yeah, I was actually under the impression that it would actually fall under that if we did a certain way.
Under the nuisance.
Yes.
Which is not under the zoning, is what I,
Correct.
so there wouldn't be a public hearing.
Correct.
It would just go to council.
That's what I was saying.
Okay,
And I can check on that for you guys, just to confirm.
thank you.
Okay, that's perfect. Because that's where we asked, we said we wanted to add it to follow the last paragraph of the current noise ordinance.
So we're gonna meet on November 29th, right?
Correct.
Now, we're also gonna meet prior to that informally? We didn't.
No,
Not
not,
if you can't perform.
Okay.
I mean.
we could, we'd have to call it a workshop and get open thing, but we just didn't do it.
But it still has to be public,
Right.
and I'd have to notice it. So if y'all decide to do that, let me know, but.
Might not be a bad idea. I mean, if we get some time, I mean, we can communicate with each other and see if we can meet and talk about it and somebody find some things out and.
Especially with this plan, it seems like what we've been.
To have some things in writing that your suggestions in writing that y'all can all
Yeah.
look at and, you know.
In 3 weeks, you know, we're basically right where we started right here.
Exactly.
In a lot of ways.
Exactly.
Do y'all want to try to look at some other dates for a workshop?
How do we announce it, like, if we put it on the board, it's going to go off.
I just have to let the news media know at least 24 hours in advance, and post it here, so we all. Preferably more notice than that, but that's.
What's Fridays like for you guys?
None of this work Fridays. I don't have to be here. I'm here as the zoning administrator.
That was one of the different day.
Fridays might be, it'd be better for me because I don't work that day.
What do you do during the day?
Friday would work.
Yeah,
Could we do during the daytime
Sure. That'd be best or not done.
yeah.
or just a workshop?
Sure, Fridays are great.
So theoretically, we met, not this Friday, but the next
The
Friday, right?
17th?
Yeah, the 17th won't work.
Might have to get a babysitter. I think the kids are already sleeping. I looked at you first.
It would only be, I mean, I
Yeah, I
would only
think
do
we-
like an hour and a half or something like that. We should be able to get done what we want, come up with our ideas, whatever, get them down in writing, and then when we all meet, we have. our
And then that
stuff.
gives us a little time maybe to get it to Warren too, to look at before the next meeting. And he
Yeah,
can
that's-
kind of tell us any kind of issues that
Yeah.
that we have with that, so we can kind of make it a little more.
Good idea.
So that, because I mean, November, December gets kind of crazy, and
Oh, yeah.
between the 29th and the 8th, it's not a whole lot of time for Warren to put all that together.
What time do you think?
I'm free.
earlier
I mean, I
day.
can make it up anytime, you know.
So we think in the morning or we have it after 12, before 12 or after 12?
I'm wide open Friday. I can move around anything to make that time, whatever works best for everyone else.
Barbara, Friday's good for you?
You afternoons are better.
Afternoon.
Okay.
So what, like 1, 2 o'clock or
One.
1?
Alright, so
1 o'clock, Friday the 17th, is that correct?
that's what I. No, but if you give her an iPad. She'll watch Disney Plus. She asked me if Maggie takes them.
Okay, so as far as your agenda, is that, do we just need the transfer of development rights on that workshop agenda?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's the issue.
Settle on that and get everything on there for, maybe we'll do really quick.
Yeah, because I'm thinking that we need to come up with just like a couple of paragraphs and whatever.
Linda said, this one is this last, these that you picked up earlier.
Right, that's
They're-
replacing.
Yeah, these,
But it's this,
these.
Well,
two
some
are-
things in your packet you'll still need, but not that first one,
This could be shredded,
yeah.
but keep that.
and this, I'll just put X on this. Or you don't look at those. Make a motion to close the meeting.
Okay, unanimous, yes.
She makes a motion, I'll second.
And we all got vote to approve.
Thank you. You really don't go anywhere.
Okay. We got it.
Did we ever accept the minutes from the last?
And I come Sunday.
Yeah, that's right.
Cameras.